Welcome back to Sacramento Smooth Jazz. I'm your host, Michael Andrews, and it's that time again for our Artist Spotlight of the Week. And we have the privilege of conversing with none other than the legendary Grammy-winning producer, songwriter, and recording artist, Michael Broening. And we are absolutely thrilled to have this. His mark on the music world is undeniable, ladies and gentlemen, with an impressive repertoire of 60, you heard me right, 60 contemporary hits, including a staggering 32 top 5 and 20 number 1 singles. He's not only just amazing there, but he is a former touring musician, DJ, and private music teacher. His journey in the music industry is as diverse as it is illustrious. And from collaborating with Grammy-winning artists to dominating the charts with his own compositions, Michael's influence knows no bounds. So join me in welcoming this musical genius as we embark on a journey through his career. Michael, welcome to Sacramento Smooth Jazz. How are you today?
I'm great, thank you. That I feel pretty special listening to that. I'm going, wow, is that me he's talking about?
Yes, indeed. It's well-deserved, man. And
thank you.
Well-deserved.
I appreciate it.
Listen, I'm
very happy to be on your show, Michael.
Thank you so much. And you are just doing some great things here in this industry. I'm listening to your music and hearing who you're producing, knowing your history here. I'm thrilled beyond measure. And I know that you have a really busy life. You got family. How do you balance the family element with what you've been doing in the music? You've been married now, almost 24 years?
Yeah, almost 24 years. 2 kids.
Got 2 kids. How do you balance the greatness with the greatness? You're the family and music.
Well, I don't know if any of it's great. I managed to balance it. Part of it's having a home studio.
Okay.
I have a home studio. But I'm not going to lie. I mean, there were many times I'd be in the middle of writing something or producing something, and the kids come in and, Daddy, I need lunch. Or, hey, I got to stop this production. I got to pick up my kid from daycare. You know, that kind of stuff. In the early stages, it was hard.
Yeah. With
the kids being young. And then when they went to school, I was like, oh, that's like a 6-hour reprieve.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Right? That I could do it. But it's hard. I will say I used to tour and I used to play a lot of gigs. When I finally made the decision when I had kids, that I wanted to do songwriting and producing, a lot of it was cutting out a lot of the touring. Because once I really started down this path, the touring kind of stopped. And it was because I just couldn't do it. I couldn't tour, I couldn't write, I couldn't produce, and I couldn't raise a family at the same time. So the thing that got cut out was playing live. And that is partially why I've been behind the scenes for so long and not out in the spotlight, is because that was what worked. You know, writing for somebody else, let them produce it or let them promote it. Let them be the artist. I'll be behind the scenes. So it's only recently when I did my own record that I kind of stepped out into the spotlight. But that's part of the balancing act. But you know how it is.
Yes.
When you got a family, you got to do what's right for the family.
You have to. Yes, you have to. And you made some great decisions looking at family first. And now here we are with 60 contemporary hits, numerous chart toppers. So with all this chart success, great success with a number of artists, what drives that creative process when you're crafting a new composition?
I'm not sure there's a specific formula for what the next song's going to be. I will say that I have all kinds of different means of getting inspired to write another song. I do a lot of hiking. I got a mountain right behind my house. I stick on my headphones and I listen. I try to come up with ideas. I'll sing little melodies. Irony, Michael, is I rarely listen to smooth jazz when I come up with ideas. A lot of the ideas I come up with come from pop radio, urban AC, sometimes even rap. I wrote a Marion Meadows tune based around a Snoop Dogg tune.
Come on.
I'm not kidding. It's Like This and Like That is the groove behind, I forget the name of the song, but that's what I had been listening to. I was DJing a party and that came up and I was like, man, this is the coolest groove ever. This has got to be made into a smooth jazz tune. So if you listen to it, you'll be like, oh my God, that's the Snoop Dogg groove. So I mean, there's so many different ways, but I think I just talked to my bass player about this and we were talking about keeping relevant. And part of what I think keeps it relevant is that I'm not just listening to what's being currently played on smooth jazz. I'm listening to what's currently played on pop and retro R&B And I get my ideas that way, and then it ends up becoming smooth jazz because of the artist and the way I produce it and write it. But I feel like it stays relevant and it stays inspiring because I'm trying to always keep it updated by using more current music and just putting a smooth jazz spin on it. So that's part of it.
You know, and I would say I watched an interview with you, and you were talking about a current track that's charting very high right now with Randy Scott, saxophonist,
Right.
with Twilight. And when you mentioned the R&B melody on that, and I said, I see that. I can hear that. I see what you're talking about now.
It's not jazz.
Yeah.
If you really think about it, that's a whole conversation. But if you really think about it, jazz is all improvised. And smooth jazz isn't. Smooth jazz is really instrumental R&B, if you think about it. And so a lot of the grooves that we get come from, more traditional R&B and pop. And the thing that makes it smooth jazz is there is a heavy improvisation element from the soloists, right? And there tends to be a little more complexity and freedom to be more complex with the chord progressions. But like if you listen to an old Miles Davis record, drummer's not playing a groove.
Right.
He's improvising with the rest of the band. Everybody is improvising around a chart.
Exactly.
But that's not how smooth jazz is. Smooth jazz is grooving.
To your point, there's been stories of how Miles Davis had made some changes based on what the drummer was doing that wasn't planned.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
He stopped and just said, okay, and then start changing.
Well, and Kind of Blue is an hour, more than an hour, and it's 6 songs. So, I mean, it's not... So that's jazz. When I think of jazz, that's what I think of. I mean, some of the more traditional jazz you get from like a Coltrane or Bill Evans have more traditional time lengths, but I mean, some stuff 8, 9, 10 minutes long. You just don't see that in smooth jazz. It's treated more like pop radio. I like to tell people smooth jazz is instrumental R&B. Retro.
Yes.
Because we're not doing what would be current today in R&B, because I don't even know what you would call that today. But what we end up doing ends up, because we're all older, it ends up sounding like R&B from the 90s, you know?
Yes.
So that's what it is. But yeah, it's funny you mentioned Randy Scott's Twilight, because I actually got the idea for that from a chem gym.
Really?
It wasn't, yeah.
I love it.
Isn't that cool?
That is very cool.
Yeah.
Wow. You go outside the bounds. You know what I mean? You're thinking
Absolutely.
You're thinking outside
Yeah.
the box, and that's a life lesson for people right there.
You have to. Yeah. That's the only way you can stay current. Otherwise, you're just going to sound like everybody else. I know there's not anybody out there writing smooth jazz that used Snoop Dogg as a template.
Right.
I'm willing to bet good money.
With Marion Meadows, it's like,
With
really?
Marion Meadows, exactly.
Oh goodness. So was it a track? Do you remember the album that was on?
It was Dressed to Chill.
Ah, that one. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm blank. I'm so sorry. I'm
No,
blanking
it's
on
okay,
the names. Because I never remember the names. That's the other thing too. When you're writing a song in smooth jazz, there's no lyrics.
Right.
So I name every song after the beats per minute. So like I have just a slew of songs that say song idea 79 BPM. And then we finish it and it suddenly has a name and I forgot what the name was. In my head, it's still 79 BPM. So I can't remember the name of that song that I did where it was the Snoop Dogg thing, but I know it's on Dressed to Chill. I mean, if you hear it, you'll know exactly which one it is.
Now everyone's going to be looking for the track on Just to Chill for the Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
But see, that is, to me, I didn't know that part. That's just really amazing.
You wouldn't hear it if you wouldn't hear it. Because it gets, it's a template.
Yeah.
It's an idea.
Yeah.
And then you take it in your own direction. By the time you've taken it in your own direction, it doesn't sound anything like a rap tune. But that was the starting point.
Wow.
And that's what a lot of the inspiration comes from. Otherwise, you just get bored. Like take some chance and listen to something interesting and new, or some older, here's another one. So here's the opposite. Lynn Roundtree's, the first song I ever did with him, it was #1 for 5 weeks. Pass the Groove.
Okay.
That started out from Well You Needn't by Thelonious Monk.
Wow. Impressive.
Like that, no relation to Snoop Dogg.
None.
Or Chem. Or certainly no smooth jazz.
Yeah.
But that's where the melodic idea came from.
Okay.
It doesn't sound anything like Well You Needn't, but that's where the idea started from. So it's like we start from all different spots, but the more diverse you start, the more interesting the music sounds, and the more diverse it sounds, and the more relevant it sounds.
And it's clearly evident it's working for you based on your success. And so let me ask you this now. When you're collaborating, you've collaborated with some Grammy-winning artists and you've produced some great songs. It's no small feat. And I know it is no pre-programmed way in which you're thinking, hey, this one's going to be a hit. I'm writing a song and this is going to be a hit. I know you don't come from that angle, but I want to know this, and I'm sure our listeners want to know. With all these different artists that you've worked with, Grammy-winning, things of that nature, what's a memorable experience or a lesson learned that you gleaned from this?
Oh, that's an easy one. It's the one I did with George Benson.
Okay.
And the lesson learned is how George handled because we were talking about this before. The song that won the Grammy, it was Mornin. It was George Benson and Jarreau. And I, for some bizarre reason, got thrown into that mix because I was a nobody. But I had done one Marion Meadows record that George liked. He'd moved to Phoenix out of the blue. Hey, do you want to produce George Benson? I'm thinking, what?
Exactly.
You want me to produce George Benson? So we're in a studio. He's very disappointed with how the recording of his part is going. I had pre-done a rough track. Believe it or not, I did Mornin. Here's another example. I did the Morning groove based on a Beyonce tune, All the Single Ladies. It was that groove. So I was doing Mornin to All the Single Ladies.
Really?
Yes.
Amazing.
So, and he thought that was really cool. But for some reason, the studio that was recording his guitar part, they had him running through so much latency. It was just ridiculous. And at some point, he asked me, can you do better than this? Because I was there. I was just an onlooker in this massive $1 million studio. And all I had was my little dinky computer that I recorded one album on for Marion. And I go, yeah, I think so. So here's George Benson showing up at my little ranch style home in his Rolls Royce. And he shows up and I don't have a room to record him in. So I poke a hole in the wall and run it through the drywall of cable to an amp next to my son's crib, and I stick it in there and redo it in 2 takes. And that's the take that's used in the song that won the Grammy. And so you ask about like a life lesson. So the life lesson is George Benson. At that time, I'm embarrassed. I'm sitting here thinking, this is like one of the most famous people in the world. And he's got to be sitting here thinking, what has become of my life that I'm sitting here recording with this kid with my guitar running through an amp next to a baby crib?
Right.
Like I'm above this, right?
Uh-huh.
You would think that's what he was thinking. It wasn't. What his thinking is you got the right part. You got the part that I needed. I don't care where it's recorded.
Come on.
You know?
Yes.
He goes, I've done stuff in Philly where I was in a closet, and that's the best part that I did. I can't even tell you where some of the best stuff I've ever recorded, where it was recorded. So I don't care. That $1 million studio failed and you didn't, so I don't care. And that's what a pro does. That's the lesson I learned, is at no point should you ever snob on where it is, because you never know where the magic's going to come from.
Yeah. Wow.
And that was life-changing for me, because I'm sitting here all embarrassed and he's like, I don't care. He didn't care.
Wow.
He thought it was just fine. And so at some point you still want to up your game a little. And, I wouldn't recommend trying to be a Grammy-winning producer with every single recording next to a baby crib.
Right.
At some point you want to up your game a little bit. But you also can't take that for granted when you got everything going, that now you can just coast.
Yeah.
You still have to figure out how to capture the magic. And for some reason we captured it that day. And so that's how you have to do things. And the other thing is just you adapt. George adapted, and that's what pros do.
This is some great life lessons for inspiring musicians and producers looking to make a mark. It's like, don't despise the small beginnings.
Right. Absolutely.
Greatness can happen where you are right now, even if you have to punch a hole in the wall.
A hole in the wall.
To run a cable next to a crib.
Right. Exactly. Right. Just make sure your son or daughter is at daycare.
Right.
I wouldn't recommend having them in there crying.
Yeah.
Because that will bleed through the microphone. But yeah, so there are little steps to take. But I'm not kidding when I say it was next to a crib and it won the Grammy.
Amazing. Amazing. Now, with your current project out and about right now, are you currently working on other projects of your own? What's going on with you right now behind the scenes?
I'm actually in the beginning stages of doing my follow-up album.
Okay.
And what do we call it now? We don't call it CDs anymore.
I still call it an album. Record?
Yeah.
Record?
Album. It's not record. I think album.
I call it a record sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know what we call them anymore, but follow-up album. My first one is, we're doing the 5th single, which is The Way She Moves. That's out now. Mm-hmm. I think that'll probably be the last single we promote from that album. So I'm looking at a 2025 release for my follow-up. So I'm in the writing stages right now, and I've got some ideas.
Okay.
So I'm doing that, and then I have a lot of different artists that I'm producing, that I'm working with right now. And I have a couple singles coming out too. A Kim Scott single called Like Butter is coming out in a month. Steve Oliver, I have a song for him. And then there's a bunch of artists I'm actually working with right now.
Amazing. You're staying busy.
Yeah, I do have a lot. And in the meantime, I'm also really trying to up my game doing my YouTube channel where I teach production ideas and piano lessons, how to play piano. So
nice.
It's keeping myself busy.
Now, how can our listeners reach out to you, especially on your YouTube or websites? How can they connect with you to find out what's going on with you?
So my YouTube channel is Michael Broening Music on YouTube. And I'm on Facebook. Just Facebook friend me, Michael Broening, and then Michael B Productions is my Facebook page. So I have my personal page and then my other page. I kind of post the same stuff, but more personal stuff on my thing. But anybody's welcome to Facebook friend me on that. And Instagram is Michael Broening. I've got a TikTok that's also M Broening, and Spotify, Michael Broening. It's all just my name. If you just Google my name, it'll take you to a bunch of those different things.
You're not hard to find. This is great. So with your current project out, you got a current single that you're promoting right now, and talk to our listeners about that. How did that come to be, and what can you tell us about that?
Well, this is the last single we're promoting. It's The Way She Moves, and the whole album itself was Jeff Lunt at my label twisting my arm to finally put out a solo album, and which I finally did. And it came out almost exactly a year ago, but it was a lot of songs that just never worked for other artists. When you're writing for sax or trumpet, guitar, that just tended to work better as a piano piece. And so I had leftover tunes. And so he said, why don't you just stop this being behind the scenes all the time and actually step out and put out a record? And I did. And this is one of them. And a lot of it is the same musicians that I use forever. This particular song is Mel Brown on bass. And Mel is like one of my best friends. And he's been there since day one, really. Mel was on Players Club with Marion Meadows that we did in 2003. And it also has Freddie Fox, who's also on that record. He's on this song. Randy Scott is playing saxophone on The Way She Moves. And Lester Estelle Jr. is on drums. Lester's really cool. I've never actually spoken to him, but he's a really cool dude. His gig, Michael, you know what he does?
No, what does he do?
He is Kelly Clarkson's drummer.
Really?
Yeah.
You just have greatness all around you. You're surrounded by some great individuals.
This guy's amazing. He looks like, well, I don't know what he looks like now, but the first time I saw a picture, I thought he looked like Michael Clark Duncan. He was just like muscular. But he goes and he does his Kelly Clarkson gig and films those TV shows. And then he goes back to his pad and does session work. And then he just flies back and forth between two cities. Guy never takes a break. But he's on like 6 or 7 of my songs on that album. So he's pretty amazing. But it's just like a little sexy little groove that I came up with. I named it after my wife because she had to be in there somewhere.
Right.
Right?
Uh-huh.
You got to name something after your wife.
That's right. That's right.
So I named it after my better half, and that's it. I mean, that's the song.
The Way She Moves. And ladies and gentlemen, you get to hear it right now on Sacramento Smooth Jazz. Michael, thank you for hanging out with us today. We are grateful.
Thank you, Michael. I had a ball. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Sacramento Smooth Jazz. To continue listening to Smooth Jazz 24/7, follow Sac Smooth Jazz on social media and listen by going to sacsmoothjazz.fm.